companions, we hope that you've enjoyed and learned from our twice weekly nuggets. Thank you for watching and for the kind comments you've posted about them. Here is our finale, with a couple of twists to look out for. Please let us know what you think. We have lots more planned, so do stay tuned. So, is the Holy Royal Arch an order or a degree? The first paragraph of the first page of the Book of Constitutions reads, "By the solemn act of union between the Grand Lodges of Freemasons of England in December 1813, it was declared and pronounced that pure ancient masonry consists of 3 degrees and no more, namely those of the entered apprentice, fellow craft, and master mason, including the supreme order of the Holy Royal Arch." This is the only mention of the Royal Arch in the Act of Union, but it has caused more debate than any other subject in the whole of Freemasonry. Is the Holy Royal Arch a completion of the Master Mason's degree or a separate degree? It is worthy of note that the declaration refers to the supreme order as opposed to supreme degree. In the Library of Freemasonry at Freemasons Hall in London is a rough book in which the Grand Recorder, William Henry White, wrote verbatim notes of all Grand Chapter convocations and meetings of its subordinate committees. It is clear from his notes that the original declaration read 4 degrees, namely entered apprentice, fellow craft, master mason, and also the supreme degree of Holy Royal Arch. So, if the declaration makes reference to a supreme order in 1813, why do we now make reference to the supreme degree? Perhaps our second Provincial Grand Principal can offer an answer. Phil.
Supreme degree is mentioned 9 times in the Royal Arch ceremony of exaltation, and until changes were made to the ritual in the 1990s, the final paragraph of the ceremony of exaltation contained the following. You may perhaps imagine that you have this day taken a 4th degree in Freemasonry. Such, however, is not the case. It is the Master Masons completed. For when you were raised to the 3rd degree, you were informed that by the untimely death of our Master, Hiram Abiff, the secrets of a Master Mason were lost. Today, this has been changed too. We congratulate you on being exalted into Royal Arch Masonry, at once the foundation and keystone of the whole Masonic structure. When you were raised to the 3rd degree, you were informed that by the untimely death of our Master, Hiram Abiff, the secrets of a Master Mason were lost. Deputy Grand Superintendent, back to you.
Perhaps this carefully prevents any controversy by avoiding the suggestion that the Royal Arch should be considered a 4th degree, and also that it is the completion of the Master Mason's degree. With that in mind, let's call upon our 3rd Provincial Grand Principal. Elliot, how does that fit the Holy Royal Arch into context with the craft?
Well, Nick, the Royal Arch's connection with the craft is well emphasised on the Supreme Grand Chapter certificate. So as we can see there at the top in the form of a catenarian arch, we've got the letters that represent in the name of the Grand Architect of the Universe, similar to that of the craft, but quite different to what you'd expect to hear in a Royal Arch convocation. And then at the bottom, we can also see a connection with a craft lodge because, of course, that is the mosaic paving that we see in a craft lodge. It also bears the seal of the United Grand Lodge of England, although the arms of the ancient Grand Lodge appear on the left-hand side, and it bears the devices of a man, a lion, an ox, and an eagle. There's also a circle enclosing 2 interlacing triangles, which in turn enclose an equilateral triangle. And those interlaced triangles are known as the Seal of Solomon. And that, of course, became part of the Royal Arch jewel and symbolise the 6 lights. Now, the Royal Arch ceremony ritual also contains references to the craft, the method of advancing by 7 steps, halting and bowing at the 3rd, 5th and 7th step is, of course, a reminder of the 3 craft degrees.
But if the Royal Arch is such an important part of craft masonry, why is it administered as a separate order with its own constitutions and regulations, its own grand and provincial structures and regalia? Let's ask our Provincial Grand Director of Ceremonies. Joe?
Well, perhaps, Nick, the answer lies in the early development of the Royal Arch. No concrete evidence has as yet been found as to its precise origin. The first printed reference to it is in a newspaper, Faulkner's Dublin Journal, for January 1743, in an account of a Masonic procession at Youghal, County York, on the 27th of December 1742, which happened also to be St John's Day, when the Master of Lodge number 21 was preceded by the Royal Arch carried by two excellent masons. We wish that we could be certain that this was not just an added piece of ornament, but the inclusion of the term excellent mason does infer that the procession was indeed one of Royal Arch masons. The consensus of opinion is that the Royal Arch was developed as a sequel to the Master Mason's degree for the benefit of installed masters. It should of course be remembered that during this period there was no formal ceremony of installation as we know it today. There were no secrets restricted to the master's chair which could be communicated to the new master. The Royal Arch was designed to provide a separate grade for men who had occupied the master's chair. When the compilers of the Royal Arch ceremony ritual were shaping a ceremony that would carry the installed master into a wider Masonic sphere, they based their work primarily on the Vault and Discovery legend, which formed a well-known theme of church history in the writings of the early fathers.
So, if we can't find any evidence as to the precise origin of the Royal Arch, when do we start to see any concrete documentation? Arthur, can you help?
Well, we have to wait, Nick, as there is no reference to Royal Arch in the English Constitution until after the formation of the Ancients Grand Lodge in 1751. In his book Hymn and Reason, which means help to a brother, their Grand Secretary Lawrence Dermot declared that the Royal Arch is the root, heart and marrow of Freemasonry, and he embraced it as a fourth degree for installed masters. However, at first the Premier Grand Lodge, called the Moderns, refused to accept it, no doubt relying on the rule established in Anderson's original Book of Constitutions of 1723, which said that it is not in the power of any man or body of men to make any amendment or alteration to the body of Freemasonry without first obtaining the consent of Grand Lodge. However, as time passed, the Premier Grand Lodge realised the importance of the Royal Arch, and in 1766 it established as an entirely independent body the Grand and Royal Chapter of Jerusalem, with the Grand Master Lord Blaney as its head. In 1796 this name was changed to the Grand Lodge of Royal Arch Masons, and again in 1801 to the Supreme Grand Chapter.
How did the union of the Ancients and Moderns Grand Lodges change the scenery? John?
Nick, when the two rival Grand Lodges were moving towards unity in 1813, the status of the Royal Arch became significant. On the insistence of the ancients, the paragraph quoted at the beginning was inserted into the Act of Union. It is universally accepted that the wording was a compromise between the ancients, who wanted the Royal Arch to be recognised as a fourth degree, and the moderns, who thought it separate to the established 3 craft degrees. We therefore return to the original conundrum: is the Royal Arch really the completion of the 3rd degree? The Royal Arch is beyond doubt a degree, and, for the great majority, it is part of the Masonic system, irrespective of whether or not it is the completion of the 3rd degree. The main argument against it being the completion of the third degree is that the third degree existed for 20 years before the Royal Arch ceremony emerged. Also, the Irish Royal Arch ritual and the American Royal Arch ceremony based on it differs greatly from our English Royal Arch ritual.
For English Constitution companions who haven't witnessed that, how does that Irish and American ritual differ from our own? Andrew?
Nick, the Irish version is based on much firmer biblical ground and is based on events surrounding the rebuilding of the First Temple by King Josiah. And the discovery episode is similar to the one recounted in the book of Deuteronomy. Criticism may be made that the third degree is inconclusive, given the loss of the genuine secrets, but if it is properly understood, it is complete and culminates with a search for inner perfection. The charge in the third degree goes beyond the sentences already quoted. The candidate is charged to continue to listen to the voice of nature, which bears witness that even in this perishable frame resides a vital and immortal principle, which inspires a holy confidence that the Lord of life will enable us to trample the King of terrors beneath our feet and lift our eyes to that bright morning star, whose rising brings peace and salvation to the faithful and obedient of the human race. If we do not take the advice, the word which we are left with is the substituted word, which relates to the rotting corpse in the grave.
So, if the Royal Arch does force us to look beyond the craft, how does its ritual enhance its members' Masonic experience? Let's ask Martin. Martin?
The Royal Arch rewards those who heed that advice with confirmation of the existence of the Word, the sacred and mysterious name of God. The early Christian legends, referred to earlier as the basis of our Royal Arch ritual, refer to the discovery of the Gospel of St. John. The first verse of the Gospel is, I am sure, familiar to all of us. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. In the Royal Arch Exaltation mystical lecture, it is described as that great, awful, tremendous, and incomprehensible name of the Most High. It signifies I am that I am, the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last, who was, and is to come, the Almighty. It is the sacred and mysterious name of the actual, future, eternal, unchangeable, and all-sufficient God, who alone has his being in and from himself, and gives to all others their being, so that he is what he was what he is, and will remain both what he was and what he is, from everlasting to everlasting, all creatures being dependent on his mighty will and power.
Are we suggesting that there is a common link between the Irish, American and English rituals? David, are we suggesting that?
The essential philosophy of the Royal Arch Order is in all three constitutions, Nick. Whether the legend is based on the discovery of the law, as in the book of Deuteronomy, and the call by the young king for the people to return to righteousness after a sojourn in a spiritual wilderness, or whether it is the actual return to their native land of another prince and his people from real exile followed by the discovery of a long-lost secret, is that it is only the grace of God that can enable us to find that which was lost.
Brethren and companions, in conclusion, it doesn't matter whether or not the Royal Arch is considered the completion of the third degree. It is an important order in Freemasonry. Remember the words of the principles after the candidate is restored to light. In the degrees which you received in the craft, you were taught that Freemasonry is a peculiar system of morality, based on a belief in the great architect of the universe, and promoting brotherly love, relief, and truth as the basis of your earthly pilgrimage. The ceremony of raising implies that there is more to learn. The Royal Arch develops this theme. It is therefore concerned with truth in the light of eternity, and so leads its companions to a higher understanding of the purpose of our mortal existence. This is an essential lesson which all Master Masons should be encouraged to learn. I'd like to thank Phil, Elliot, Joe, Arthur, John, Andrew, Martin and David for helping with our finale. And companions, before you go, we have an important message for you.
Thank you.